Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. Last week we heard from a group of readers in Washington, D.C., who discussed Jerry Craft's Newbery Award-winning graphic novel, New Kid. This week we hear from Jerry himself. We asked him whether he is a plotter, one of those writers who meticulously plots their novel before they start writing, or a pantser.
I feel like I'm a pantser. And for those that don't know that means flying by the seat of your pants. I'm currently working on New Kid 3 now, and this is the most that I have. This is the first time that I actually typed out the manuscript, where normally I just start sketching it out. I had my son's old 3-ring binder that he was about to throw out one day that I had paid probably $20 for. And, I went and just started sketching out all the pages, and that's what I do. So this is the first time where I sat down and I was like, okay, I am going to just write it all from beginning to end. And then I have since gone over it 20 times, and gone back and gone back and gone back and fixed stuff. But when I'm going good, like a really good pace, it's weird, but I almost feel like I'm taking dictation. Once it flows, it just comes, I don't struggle over it, because one of the things is I've thought about it so much ahead of time that when I sit down, it's just bubbling, waiting to get out. I never sit down in front of a blank screen or a blank piece of paper without already having some idea. So once I do, it's like the dam bursts and it just comes out, and then I just type it as fast as I can to get it all down.
Well, does it come out in words or in pictures?
Both. I kind of straddle that, those components. Like for New Kid, when I pictured him in the dining hall for the first time, I thought immediately the thing that would show how isolated he felt is to have him 6 inches tall, standing in front of a spilled over milk carton. I also think in terms of jokes. I did a comic strip called Mama's Boys for 20 years. So when I did the comic strip, it was always panel, joke, panel, joke. So when I think of something funny, I okay, this is my punchline. Now I have to back up. How do I get to this punchline? So it may be something where, say, Jordan puts his red sneakers in with his white shirt, and now the rest of the month he's got all his clothes are pink, And once I have that, I'm like, oh, that's funny. Now let me back up and figure that out, and then let me put it in a few times throughout the book so that it has some continuity to it.
Well, how long did it take you to write New Kid? Or should I say, draw New Kid?
Well, let's see. The production, I actually pitched it, meaning I told a publisher about the idea in about March of 2014. And they liked the idea, so I started to loosely sketch it out, but just chapter at a time, kind of thinking who are the main characters, and because, you really have to create everything. What's his mom's name? What's his dad's name? Does he have grandparents? Where does he live? How does he look? What clothes does he wear? Who are his friends? It's creating an entire universe. I think it took about 2 years to really start to get everything the way I wanted. And then there were some ups and downs. I got a lot of rejection from publishers, lots. I sold it to HarperCollins. So I started drawing it in January 2017. And I worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I handed it in February of 2018. And then it did not come out until February 2019. It was about 5 years from the first time I mentioned it to a publisher to the time that it was actually in my hands.
How many rejections did you get for this book?
5 or 6. Yeah, like, oh, it's too angry. Oh, nothing happens. Oh, this. And, not to get deep, but I do think that when it is a book with African American characters, especially boys, you wait for something to happen. You wait for a shooting. You wait for a police interaction. You wait for something. And if it doesn't happen, it's like, well, this isn't real. This isn't slice of life. I'm like, listen, I grew up playing stickball, and riding bikes and playing basketball. And some days the hardest decision I had to make was if I wanted maple walnut or butter pecan ice cream. Not everything was a life or death. And I think that so many people expect that a lot of publishers didn't understand what they were looking at. And again, fortunately, my editor, Andrew Eliopoulos, and my publisher, Rosemary Brosnan at HarperCollins, got it immediately, and the book went off to have a pretty historic launch, which is unbelievable.
Well, talk about character development in those same terms. I mean, did you see Jordan immediately know what he looked like, or did you hear his voice? Again, which came first, the pictures or the words?
So again, this is really frightening because I had never seen a book like this. And I should have seen it, like everyone talks about that New Kid is groundbreaking, which I appreciate. But I don't think in 2021 and 2020 that a book about, a black kid going to a private school should have been groundbreaking. But because I hadn't seen anything, I didn't know if I could do that. So I thought in terms of making all the characters animals, would I have to do that? Would I have to, instead of talking about color, would I have to talk about, different animals, like there are rhinos and zebras and tigers, like I just really didn't know what the publishing industry would let me get away with because I hadn't seen humorous books with kids of color. They were always angry and sad and all that. So I had very little confidence that I could just tell the story that I wanted to tell. And when I did start to sketch it out, and since it did, was based on me, I had it kind of look like me as a kid. And then I had to get my style. I knew I had to do it more humorous. So, bigger heads and cuter rather than more realistic. It wouldn't have made a really good, realistic looking book. And again, because I'm talking about issues that people are afraid to talk about, race and class, I had to make it as funny as I could, I thought, by adding humor, by adding the puppet girl, by adding the little angels that fly around, by having the Batman, imagination scenes, the comic strips, because to be honest, I just thought that it was a strong possibility that I might only get one shot to tell the story. So I had to put as much stuff. It was like jamming a suitcase, you got so much and you're sitting on it. So that's why even the chapter headings or references to pop culture things, because I knew that I had to go way above, what I might have if I did not have that pressure. So when you talk about giving 150%, I knew because that's what I thought I would have to do. I mean, I'm glad in retrospect, obviously, but I just thought that it was that potential to be just one and done.
You weren't much of a reader as a kid yourself, were you?
I probably read more books once I had kids of my own than I ever did, when I was a kid. The idea of sitting down and reading for enjoyment wasn't something that I developed until I was grown. I could read, but I could read, an 800-page book on how to use Adobe Photoshop or which money markets to invest money in or something like that. So reading was always information, So when I started reading these books to my sons, that was new for me.
Thanks, Jerry. We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org, on our Writers on Writing page. And if you are organizing a summer reading program at your library, drop us a line. We'd love to put your reading kids on a future podcast. Just send us an email to kitty@bookclubforkids.org, and we'll send you all the information. It's easy, really. All you need is a signed permission slip, a smartphone, and a young reader willing to talk about a favorite book. Again, the email is kitty@bookclubforkids.org. And if you haven't discovered our other podcasts, the Fina Mendoza Mysteries, you are in luck. We will be reprising the 16-plus episodes of Season 2, State of the Union, where Fina is in search of the mysterious bird that pooped on the president. That's the Fina Mendoza Mysteries, which also introduce civics to young learners. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcast. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks so much for listening.